Well, hello parents and good evening this evening. Welcome to our Term 3 Parent Forum. And again, we're here in our own houses. I have the rest of the family inside the house, hopefully keeping nice and quiet while I have come out the back to try and hide. But once again, we find ourselves in a situation that we never anticipated that we're in, but here we are. I think that the Olympics has been a little bit of a blessing and brought some joy to our living rooms, and I hope that you guys have all been, cheering and enjoying that, and really, I guess, using the Olympics as a bit of a break for what's been happening and going on currently at the moment. A few things I'm really excited when we do get back to home learning or to online learning. Not online learning, to live learning with our boys in the classroom, is just to talk about some of those amazing performances of the Olympians, and particularly those Olympians who really are valuing their education. Jessica Fox, what an amazing athlete she is. Band 6 in every single one of her subjects. She came first in PDHPE, got a ATAR of 99.1, and this week has just won a gold and a bronze medal at the Olympic Games in Tokyo. What an amazing human that lady is. So certainly excited to be able to share those kind of journeys. And also our sprinter last night, he also has similar values of valuing his education. Okay, tonight we've got a number of staff members that are here this evening to talk to you, and I'm not actually going to go through and introduce everyone just at the moment because of the long list, but what I just want to make sure, parents, that we are really clear on and able to see, if you go to the top of your screen, you'll be able to find your Q&A feature. And the Q&A feature is where we'll be able to ask questions, and all of the staff that are here at the moment will be able to respond back to you. So please be patient, and we will be answering our questions as best as we can. And then some of those questions that we are answering online or typing digital answers back to, we will also be able to summarise them in a chat. If you aren't able to see the Q&A, that might be because you don't have the most current version of Microsoft Teams. If that's the case, don't worry. When I send out the minutes of this evening's meeting, I'll do a little bit of a summary of that Q&A, so that certainly will happen. All right, Kathy, I'm going to pass over to you to be able to, start this evening off in a prayerful space.
Thank you very much, Ali, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to my home too this evening. During the week at school, we're actually celebrating as a college community NAIDOC week, and that's a really important week that happened during the holidays. So we're celebrating it later, but we really want to acknowledge that. And the theme for this year for NAIDOC is actually Heal Country. And I don't think there is anything more possibly important for not only our Aboriginal community, but for all of us to pray for healing. So tonight, our prayer, the prayer that I will lead us in, is a prayer for healing, taking into account our Aboriginal people, but all of us at this time. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Darawal people, the traditional owners who cared for and inhabited the land on which St Gregory's stands, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And we pray together in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Lord God, we entrust to you our families and our communities. Lord Jesus, when you walked with us on earth, you spread your healing power. We place in your loving care all who need your healing from past injustices or the challenges which are currently affecting our world. Bring relief to those who are sick or anxious, console our bereaved, and protect those who care for us. We pray especially for healthcare workers, that you guide and protect them. We pray that your Spirit might inspire those making decisions, that the decisions are compassionate and wise. And in the midst of this, keep us strong in faith, hope and love, and grant us the courage and perseverance to be good neighbours to each other. We entrust all in need of healing to your infinite power and love. Amen. St Marcelin and St Gregory, pray for us. Mary, our good mother, pray for us. And let us always remember to pray for one another. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Thanks, Ali.
Thanks so much, Kath. I think it's certainly an important opportunity just to take that bit of time and to be able to reflect in all of this. All right, Lee, we're going to pass over to you. Just a clock reminder, we've got the Matildas kicking off tonight at 9. So, you know, I'm not putting you on a time limit, but just letting you know that there's lots happening. I'm sure there's lots of families that got one eye on the Parent Forum and one eye on the Olympics tonight. Over to you, Lee.
Thanks, Ali, and certainly as a football fan, that's where I want to be later on tonight, cheering on the Matildas. So, parents, thanks for joining us tonight, and I just thank my colleagues, members of the leadership team, Ali, Don, Paul, all of the people who are supporting us tonight from a staff perspective. I want to begin with our staff because I know that our staff are working extremely hard, and I just want to give them great credit for the journey that they're taking with your sons in the senior school. It's not easy for them as well, and I know that lots of times you look at it through the lens of your own son in terms of online learning, but I'd like to just have an alternate lens just for the next 30 seconds and focus on the work of the teachers. You know, our teachers are professional people who work extremely hard, and what I witness and what I have witnessed over the last 2 weeks, and I certainly will witness over the next 4 weeks as we go further into online learning, is a great dedication and commitment to the young men in our school and making sure that they get the very best of online learning. We know, you know, they know that it's not easy for anyone, but we're making the most of this. And, you know, every day I think we're learning something. I tuned into the junior school staff meeting this afternoon, and the sharing of the wisdom amongst the junior school teachers in their online learning themselves as colleagues was quite astounding. And you know, I came away from there feeling very refreshed about the way that they're approaching it and their learning curve. And I know that that would be exactly the same for our senior teachers as well. So well done to our staff, and I commend them to you for the work that they're doing. You know, I also want to say to you as the parents, thanks for getting in behind your young men and supporting them. It's not easy as well, but we know that, you know, you are doing an enormous job from your homes, supporting them to be the best that they can possibly be in this space. So continue to do that, please. Continue to support our teachers, and you know, things will not always be perfect. Let's admit that. You know, we're not going to tie ourselves down thinking that everything's going to be perfect, because it isn't. There will be bumps along the way, and that's okay, because there's bumps along the way as we do face-to-face teaching too. So there's no difference when we do online learning. We're on that gradual learning curve, and yeah. But I do want to thank you, the parents. And I want to thank our young men. You know, for the majority of our young men, their engagement has been fantastic. I know myself, I have a Year 7 class, and you know, I'm really witnessing firsthand some of the struggles that they're going through. There's no doubt about it. But I also see young men who really want to get in and do their best for their 45-minute lesson. They're engaged, they're asking questions, they're responding in a particular way. They're using the platforms that we're employing. So well done to the majority of our young men. We have a few who are struggling, and we're reaching out to them, and they need to reach out back to us as well when they're struggling. It's not a one-way street. So please encourage your son, if he's not getting the most out of his online learning, to reach out. You know, reach out first to his classroom teacher or his homeroom teacher. You know, there are plenty of people around to support and ensure that they get the best out of this experience. What do we know? Well, we know that the government has announced this 4-week lockdown. So we're in online learning until the 27th of August. We know that the current statistics around the COVID cases and those in the community, and especially in the LGAs that are around us, in our own close LGA in Campbelltown, that the numbers are not going well. You know, today was a slight drop, but tomorrow could be a slight up. But, you know, so we're in this sort of period of time where there's certainly a lot of uncertainty around the numbers. And the most important thing for us as a college is the health, safety and well-being of our community. Can I stress that very, very importantly? It's not about marks and grades and assessment. Of course, learning is important, but not at the expense of people's health and well-being. So all our decision making is premised on the basis of what is good for our young people and our staff and our families to ensure that they're kept safe. I'll talk a little bit more about Year 12 in a moment. I just want to talk about years 7 to 11 at the moment. So in years 7 or 11, we know that we have the next 4 weeks of online learning. We know that last Friday, I sent out the most recent educational continuity plan. That educational continuity plan, which I'm sure Mr. Bombardieri, when he speaks tonight, will eloquently speak more about detail in that. But it's very, very important that you have taken that document from my email last week and read what the responsibilities are of our students, of our staff, and of our families, because this is a partnership. The partnership will always be stable and will be built upon if everyone participates in that. So that educational continuity plan points out to us what we're doing over these next 2 weeks. We had an educational continuity plan version 1, I'm going to call it, for weeks 1 and 2. We took your feedback, we took the feedback of our staff, and we made a number of tweaks. We've got a version for 3 and 4. Not radically different, but certainly building upon weeks 1 and 2. So our week 3 and 4 educational continuity plan has some changes in the timetable and the online learning component and all of those sorts of, the video component, I should say, and things like that. I'll leave that for Mr. Bombardieri to talk about, but it's a really pivotal document, because if we're not following that, the students, the staff and the parents, then that's when things will break down. So it's really important that we're very true to our educational continuity plan. We know that the students are doing 45-minute lessons, so they begin every morning at 8:30 with homeroom. They should be on their Microsoft Teams at 8:30 in the morning to engage in their homeroom lesson. There is no excuse for not being there. They should be up, they should be dressed in their college polo shirt or their tracksuit top, and they should be in front of their computers to begin their homeroom lesson at 8:30. And they should be fully engaged in that homeroom lesson with their homeroom teacher. Following that, on most days, apart from Thursday, they're doing 5 other periods. And those periods are 45 minutes with a 15-minute break in between the periods and a good 45-minute break for recess and an hour break for lunch. So those times are set out in the educational continuity plan, and they are so important that our young men stick to that, because that's what our staff are following. There's no excuse for a student finishing his lessons at 1 o'clock in the day. I got an email from a parent the other day saying, oh, my son finishes at 1 o'clock. And it wasn't a Thursday. It's not as if it was a different day. We know we finish at 12 o'clock on a Thursday, but every student is expected to be in class until 2:45 in the afternoon, for 4 afternoons a week. So if we follow the educational continuity plan, we're going to be in a much better space if we can follow that to the T. All right, I want to talk about Year 12. Because Year 12, we might have some parents on here talking about, wanting to know a little bit about Year 12. So I think it's important that we talk about it. We know the government came out last week, New South Wales government came out last week and made an announcement that Year 12 students would return to the classroom, face-to-face teaching from Monday the 16th of August. Now that announcement has been met with a fair bit of backlash. And it's being met with a fair bit of backlash from schools right across Greater Sydney and into the Central Coast and all of the other places that are impacted, but none more so than the 8 impacted LGAs that are locked down. I think we're in a very different place in our school in Gregory Hills, Campbelltown, to what schools might be on the Northern Beaches or in the middle of the city. And the context of what we're dealing with is very, very different. For some of them, their students may return on the 16th of August. But I want to be very clear with you that we are not going to bring our Year 12 students back into face-to-face learning until it is safe to do so. until it is safe in terms of what the Chief Health Officer tells us in writing, not in some media release. It's got to be in writing to us to say that it's safe to return to school. Now, I know, talking to many of our parents, Year 12 parents, both day students and boarding students, that they support that. They support it because they don't want their young men to be in a situation where they are possibly at risk. I know our staff are not inclined to want to be in a face-to-face situation where they feel at risk as well. Many unvaccinated, obviously our students aren't vaccinated. So the land on which we would gather, so to speak, on the 16th, if we were going to go ahead with that, is not a safe place to be. So as a college, what we're saying, and we'll announce this to our students on Wednesday as well, is that we won't be bringing our Year 12 students back to face-to-face learning on the 16th of August. And we won't be bringing them back until we feel absolutely sure, and it's confirmed by the Chief Health Officer, Dr. Kerry Chant, through the New South Wales Government, that it's safe to do so. Now, we know that that will upset some parents. We understand that, but please understand that we're doing this because it is in the best interest of our community, of each member of our community, students, staff, and families. We also, because of that delay in bringing Year 12 back, and I should say, when we bring Year 12 back will be determined by that health advice and not before we get that health advice. So it may be some time before our Year 12 students experience face-to-face learning again, but the landscape is changing all the time. The advice, every day I probably log on to, I don't know how many Zoom meetings to try and get up the most up-to-date information. And this morning I was very fortunate to have an online meeting with the Minister for Education and put our case forward from St Gregory's College, which was a great thing to be able to do. And she was very, she was happy to listen to us. But she's got such a wide portfolio of schools that she has to look after, department, independent, Catholic, all of those schools very much under her care. So look, the trial HSC, and again, Mr. Bombardieri and Ms. Tolomeo will speak more about this. At this stage, we're delaying that as well. We're not going to run with the trial HSC exams. We're going to have alternate HSC assessment tasks, which will be developed by our leaders of learning and our members of staff, and our students will not in any way be disadvantaged by those tasks. Because in the end, what we want our Year 12 students to do is to be fully prepared for their high school certificate examinations, which begin on the 19th of October. NESA has announced that delay through to Tuesday, the 19th of October. So our Year 12 students will be well prepared. They'll have their full HSC assessment mark delivered to NESA on the 8th of October. There may be some variation in their HSC assessment task weightings that will be communicated, and the tasks that are being developed in lieu of the HSC trial exams, which were due to commence in the next couple of weeks, right, will be assessments that give them a good lead into their HSC exams starting on the 19th of October. We are in a situation where we have students across our school from so many LGAs. Today I did just a tally. In Year 12, our students come from, Year 12 students alone, come from 17 different LGAs. Our staff at the school who teach our Year 12 students come from 18 different LGAs. So to put that mix in together from the 16th of August is not going to work well. There's going to be too much risk involved in doing that. And I just hope you understand our decision, again, which will be communicated in a meeting that I've set up with our Year 12 students on Wednesday during their lunchtime, a Microsoft Teams online meeting, to listen to them, but also to give them some certainty about the way forward. So look, I'm going to leave it there. I know that other people have got more to add than what I've got to add. but I wanted to really, you know, in a way tonight, give you certainty about our way forward. We know what's happening with 7 to 11, right? We will await further information from the government and New South Wales Health about what happens after the 4 weeks, but certainly for our Year 12s, we know they're not going to come back on the 16th of August. We know we're not running the HSC trials. We know we're running alternate HSC assessment tasks, which are being currently designed and developed and will be communicated. And they will be well prepared for our HSC exams, which are due to commence on the 19th of October. So I'm going to leave it there tonight, Ali, and hope that you know, any parents who'd like to ask a question, I certainly will be happy to answer them. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Lee. And, you know, I'm sure the parents are getting a sense of what you and the leadership team are currently doing each and every day to try and make sure that, you know, we've got the best for our boys at heart and for the future. So thank you. All right, Judith, I'm going to pass over to you. So this will be a new face to many of our parents that maybe haven't met. I'm sure you were thinking that you'd like to meet people in person for the first time, but you know, online will be the way that we go ahead. So Judith is our new Director of Teaching and Learning here at the college. So over to you, Judith. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Good evening, parents, and thank you for joining us tonight. Mr. McMaster has already spoken about the college's educational continuity plan, and so I just wanted to talk about and address a number of things that are in that plan from a teaching and learning perspective. So the few things I would like to speak to, and you know, as I go through this, some of these questions I know have been popping up on the screen, so hopefully I'm addressing some of those as well, is I'll talk about online learning and obviously what that looks like for your son right now. Mr. McMaster has spoken about assessment, so I'd like to add a few things around assessment. Obviously, you know, we have recommendations and expectations of our students, and that's really important, just like we have expectations for our staff in this time. I'd also like to speak briefly about parents and what you can do to support your sons in this time, as well as supporting us at the college. And I'll finish with talking about the support that is available here at the college for yourselves and your sons as we venture through this remote learning for another 3 to 4 weeks at least. So as I said, from a teaching and learning perspective, the main platform that our teachers are using with your sons, and I'm sure you're familiar with this, is Google Classroom and the Google platform. And we have spent some time with our staff to make sure that staff are able to use that platform. And one of the things we've asked of our staff is to use some check-in questions and also exit questions at the beginning and end of those lessons. And that's to ensure that your son is engaging in the lesson, that they're present. And as Mr. McMaster has also spoke about what's expected of your son to be up and present for that lesson. And an exit question to also clarify the learning engagement that's happened and whether or not your son has understood that lesson content and or if he needs any more help or discussion with that. We've also asked our staff to provide lesson overviews, and they are to be shared with students in advance. So at least a week's overviews of lessons are being sent out before those lessons occur, that have the learning intention, the success criteria, and an outline of the activities for those lessons. And that's to help your sons prepare for the week ahead, know where they're going, and to start having a little bit of ownership over their own learning as well. It's also helping our staff to be prepared and to engage in those lessons when they're occurring. Teams and Zoom are being used as a platform for video conferencing. Teams, I think, has been used as the main platform. One of the questions that has been raised by some of our parents over the last couple of weeks is about the length of video conferencing in a lesson and why the entire lesson isn't a video conference. And I guess my answer to that comes back to quality pedagogy in the classroom. And if we look at how we would normally run a classroom in a non-online environment, we certainly don't have a teacher standing out the front talking for an hour to students. So the lesson needs to be broken up into some quality instruction time from the teacher, but also time for students to be involved in that discussion, and then time for students to actually apply that discussion to the learning activities that are being asked of them. And so to ask a teacher to speak for that 45 minutes obviously isn't, isn't going to be effective. However, teachers are available for that entire lesson time through those platforms to answer questions, to support your sons, and to provide clarity or further instruction. I think it was already mentioned by Mr. McMaster that the timetable, we altered the timetable slightly, and that was from the perspective of reducing screen time, because obviously in a non-online environment, students are not looking at a computer screen for the entirety of all lessons in a 5-period day. There's obviously time that they're discussing, they're involved in a different learning environment, they could be doing practical activities. So the concern was that students are in an environment where they're staring at a small screen, and hence we reduced that screen time for each lesson to ensure that there was some breaks in between, and to also enable that time away from the screen. I think it was already mentioned as well that Thursday, the timetable does finish at 12 o'clock. That's for a number of reasons. Obviously, we would normally have sport during that time, but it's also giving staff a bit of time to prepare and catch up and get those lesson overviews prepared, and also respond to students, to respond to emails, and obviously parent emails as well. It's also giving students a little bit of downtime. Hopefully they're engaging in something that's not on a screen, but also it's giving them some time to catch up. And it's also giving Year 12 an opportunity to either work on major works or to do some preparation for the trial exams, which I know I'll address in a moment as well. Obviously they are going ahead in a different format, but I'll come back to that. And Friday morning, there is also time for pastoral care and support that's being provided there. So that's what our online learning environment is looking like at the moment. Obviously, as we go through each week, we are taking feedback from students, from staff, and from parents, and we are refining that as we go so that we move forward in the best learning environment that we can offer at this current time. So in terms of assessment, 7 to 10 assessment tasks have all been rescheduled because at the moment we're trying to alleviate stress for students, and our aim is that they're engaging in a learning environment and that learning is happening as part of assessment every day, and that teachers are able to engage with those students to see how they're progressing. So the formal tasks are not a priority for 7 to 10 at the moment, but we are still obviously collating assessment and looking and working towards those students achieving those learning goals. Year 11, we have worked through a revised assessment schedule, and some tasks have been revised. The nature and type of those tasks has been revised to reflect an online learning environment, and the timing of some of those tasks have been changed to reflect that as well. There has been a number of questions over the last couple of weeks in terms of the Year 11 final exams, which were scheduled for the end of this term. At the moment, we haven't made any decisions around that, and that will be communicated over the next couple of weeks. Mr. McMaster already mentioned Year 12, and that at this stage we are not expecting obviously Year 12 to be back on site in the next few weeks, so therefore the trial HSC period, how it normally would have looked, is going to look a little bit differently. But our advice is to students, and it has been from day one, we are preparing Year 12 for their final HSC exams, just like when Alison spoke about, our Olympic athletes, they've been preparing for this for 4 years. So our goal is the HSC exam. What we do between now and those exams is to prepare the students as best we can. The trial HSC exam will look slightly different and be a little bit different format, and that will be communicated this week to Year 12 and to parents, but it will be for the best interest for our students in preparing them for that final goal. Some recommendations or what we're expecting of our students, some of these have already been mentioned, but obviously we need our students to be engaging in those classes, we need them to be following instructions, we need them to be prepared for those online Teams meetings, and making sure that they're completing the work to the best of their ability. And if they do have questions or they are struggling, they also need to let their teachers know as well and reach out, because there is support available. For year 11 and 12, obviously we're expecting them to keep working as best they can. Year 12, we know they're in a really tough time at the moment, but again, their focus has to be those final HSC exams and everything they're working towards for that. In terms of recommendations for our staff, as I said before, our teachers are working quite, in a difficult situation, but working as best they can. They're providing lesson overviews. They're doing video conferencing with the juniors, so 7 to 10 at least once a week, which is 1 out of 2 lessons a week, and for the seniors at least twice a week, which is 2 out of 3 lessons a week on average. And as we said, we've asked that those video conferences are no more than 50% of the lesson, because there needs to be discussion and student time to complete work. Some feedback we had got from our seniors, especially year 12 students, were that the teachers were trying to do as best they can, and they were actually talking for 40 or 50 minutes in a video conference, and then students weren't getting enough time to complete then the lesson activities that the teachers were setting them. So we've put those recommendations in. Staff will be available, as I said, for the entire lesson, for every lesson, whether it be a video conference or not, and that will be through the Google Classroom platforms, Teams, email, etc. And feedback has been a talking point to staff, and we're asking staff to ensure that where possible, they're providing individual student feedback to make sure that those learning outcomes are being met. I guess for parents, there are a number of things that we ask of you. One of those being that wherever your son is completing his online learning, that area is a suitable conference area. And whilst we've said, if possible, not their bedroom, we do understand that different households, maybe that's the place that your son has to do his schoolwork during the day. And if we can just make sure that your son is doing the right thing, that he's in his lessons, he's wearing his uniform, and he's following all those guidelines that we've asked of them. Another thing that we ask is that communication continues between parents and your son, but also between parents and us at the college. Your feedback is crucial, and we rely on that to also make modifications to what we're doing to support your sons as we continue through this time. And again, and the other thing is monitoring their attendance. And I think Mr. McMaster already mentioned that. Whilst at our end, we are monitoring attendance and contacting parents, we also need parents supporting the attendance factor and ensuring that your son is attending every lesson that he is supposed to be in. And I guess just finally is the support that we have here at the college that we can offer students and parents. Obviously, the first point of call for your sons are their pastoral care teacher, obviously the year leaders that are involved in your son's pastoral care program as well, the academic care leader, which is the liaising teacher between pastoral and the academics, their classroom teachers, and then obviously us as a leadership team. So I probably rushed through a lot of that, but I'm conscious that other people need to talk. But as I said, a lot of things have already been mentioned by Mr. McMaster as well, and I think Mr. Bombardieri might have something else to add, and Mr. Baldino might speak from a partial perspective. So I guess, as always, the biggest thing is communication, and please contact us at the college if we haven't answered your questions tonight or you need any more clarification. Thank you.
Thanks, Judith. That certainly was a lot of information there. And it's certainly clear that you're saying that we want the lines of communication open between home and the college. So thank you for that. Baldino.
Just unmute myself. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? All good? Okay. Just a couple of things from me. I just want to thank Ali and the team for putting this together so we can get some vital information out to parents. From my side of things, I guess our student wellbeing is really important. and we're seeing a different side of remote or online learning this year than from what we saw last year. I guess from how we started to tweak things to accommodate student wellbeing, we started with students checking in the mornings with their homeroom teacher on a visual format. With the aid of the homeroom teacher, I guess connecting with all the boys in their specific homeroom helps sort of get a gauge on how the boys are going. That's really made a big difference. Staff are communicating well with students, and staff are communicating well with year leaders, academic care leaders, and leadership in regards to students of concern. So that's working well. The fact that the boys are wearing a school uniform of some capacity also puts the right format and set for the school day, and that's worked really well. The other thing that I was going to mention is I shot through a wellbeing survey to our boys just recently, and I just want to quickly, there's only a couple of questions that I want to run through with everyone. And the first one was, well, are you enjoying your online learning? And the boys who did respond, there was quite a few, 72% said they are enjoying their online learning. Are you keeping up with your online learning? And 87% said they did keep up, or they are keeping up with their online learning. Moving forward to about feeling motivated. Do you feel motivated regarding your online learning? 60%, it was 59.7% of the boys replied that they are. So that's a bit of an issue there, and that's something we're looking at. I guess I went from an angle of keeping healthy and keeping your mind and your body healthy. Do you exercise daily? And 82% of the boys responded yes. And the other one was about the well-being, of how general well-being is at the moment, 1 being amazing and 10 being terrible, needing support. The core of the group who responded are sitting on around a 3, which is quite it's great. It's good to see that the majority of boys are okay and travelling well with their well-being. Do they connect with their friends online? An overwhelming number of boys, 91%, said yes every day. So that's good. They're talking to each other in some format. And what are you finding most difficult about online learning? Most of them said the online expectation is quite high. So the boys are feeling a bit of pressure that they need to get their work done. 25% of those boys identified staying motivated and isolation. So there's a few areas there that we're going to look at in a little bit more detail. But moving away from that, I guess the other thing I wanted to mention is how are we keeping the boys motivated with their learning, and staff are sending out. We have a system at school. We use our green stamps and to motivate the boys to excel. The positive merits that we do online are being sent to the boys every day, so they are still being acknowledged for their good work on a daily basis. So all those particular areas, of their learning are being acknowledged. So I think that's really everything from me. The other thing is probably Year 12 and our seniors. They are probably the most needy at the moment with their well-being. It's very clear why. So we are putting a lot of time and effort in making sure that we can guide them, support them through our counselling services, through our year leaders, homeroom teachers, and everyone else. So thanks. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Baldino. Don, over to you.
Thanks, Ali. Good evening, everyone. Oh, look, most of the things that I was interested in saying have been said tonight. They've been very, very thorough at this stage. And most of my role here tonight is to see if there are any questions to be answered on a technical standpoint or with regards to the actual online learning process. So the staff are really, really dedicated. They're really they're very agile. They're working with new tools at the moment to engage with your sons, and they're doing a really fine job at the moment. Obviously, there's lots lots of things that happen up and down, as Lee mentioned, with regards to the online space. It can be very fragile with regards to the connectivity, but we all understand that we're working through it together, and the staff at the college are very understanding of students who really try hard to keep up with their work and be connected, and then they might have a few difficulties. There is one big piece of news for the college. It's not connected to the online learning program, so I'll just briefly mention it, but we've just signed a contract for a new learning management system. So that's something that we'll be working on over the next 6 months. Parents probably won't see the fruition of that until 2022, but the staff and students will be working on that. So that's pretty exciting for the college. But at the moment, it doesn't really impact on what's happening with our online learning program in the middle of a pandemic and a lockdown. So we'll keep you up to date with that, but it's certainly exciting for the staff and students as we move forward to 2022. This current situation, the pandemic, doesn't stop us moving forward with what we plan to develop our online platforms with our students and our parents as well. So thanks, Ali. That's probably all from me. I'll stay on the line for questions that might have a technical nature or otherwise. All right, back to you, Ali. Thank you.
I might actually just throw a question to you. One of the questions that have come here is saying that I know my son's email inbox is a mess. Can we encourage students to keep clean and set rules process to keep up? So is there anything that we potentially can look at doing to help boys with keeping their online space organised?
Yeah, thanks, Ali. I read that one myself there and realised that that's probably something that I can take on board with regards to sending all the students in the senior school some directions on how to maintain their digital space of communication. So that's a really good question, and something I hadn't considered in the hurly-burly of the first few weeks of online learning. So I'll take that on board, and probably within the next 24 hours, you know, if it's not contradictory, that your sons will get an email with me with a how-to and some tips on how to maintain their email correspondence so it doesn't become unwieldy. So I might say that to the parents, Ali. Now that I've said it live, I've got to do it. So that's something I'm happy to do over the next 24 hours or so. So you might want to mention to your sons that you'll receive an email from me, and it will also give them some ideas and some tips on how to manage that, because that's something that's really important with regards to the number of possible emails that they're going to receive.
Thanks
Ali.
An email to keep the emails in track. I think as well, there might be an opportunity that in one of the periods, you know, throughout the week, that we might be able to get the staff to actually say, all right, let's all take 5 minutes out of our time to be able to look at that, organising those tips that Mr. Perner has suggested. So that might be another good idea. All right, Paul Brooks, our Deputy Principal, has had a lot on his plate of late, and I know Paul has been answering a lot of the questions here, and he'll probably draw on some of them now. So over to you, Paul. Thank you.
Thanks, Ali, and good evening, everyone. Look, just looking at the questions that are coming through the chat, a lot of them are very specific to Year 12 around the, you know, when will they come back to school and what's happening with the trial exam, and what's happening with the alternative assessments in place of the trial exam. And we want them to be engaged in terms of the social activities and what's happening with the formal and graduation. Unfortunately, a lot of that is, you know, it's either been answered tonight in the sense that we're not running the trial exams, but there will be alternate assessments organised for Year 12 as their final HSC assessment task. In terms of when they're returning and when they can get vaccinated and when we can hold events, all of that is unfortunately unknown because it's out of the school's control. The college can't control. There's one that came up there recently, is the school nurse able to administer the Pfizer vaccination. Well, that would be our preference, but obviously we don't control that. So if New South Wales Health was to give us that go ahead to do that, we could probably do that. But that's something we've suggested, but obviously we're not in control of the vaccination program. So the other questions that have come up in the chat are around the amount of face-to-face lessons, and I think both Judith and Lee have mentioned that in terms of why there's not every lesson the face-to-face. One thing I will say about people are saying, you know, the teachers are available for that full lesson time. They might not be physically on the screen for that full 45 minutes, but the teachers are there present virtually for the students. So whether that's through the chat forum on Google Classroom or some other means, there is that availability. They still have access to their teachers for the 45-minute lesson on that day that they have the lesson. So so the teachers are still available to them, and there's opportunities to ask questions, even though they might not all be face-to-face lessons. That seems to be the gist of most of the questions that have come through tonight. And I think probably given the fact that a lot of those relate to Year 12 specific questions, and no doubt there's a lot of questions and anxiety both with the parents and the students, hopefully we will be able to communicate with the Year 12 boys on Wednesday and put down a pretty, I guess, a dot point of, you know, frequently asked questions, and here are the answers to those frequently asked questions, so that many of those questions that we can answer, that we are able to answer at this stage, can be answered. And of course, there'll be some that we can't answer as much as we'd like to be able to do that. We just can't, because it's all dependent upon the government, the health advice that is really impinging on our ability to make definite decisions going forward. I think that's all, Ali. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Paul. So when you made mention about the vaccinations there and the potential of Year 12, has there been any information given to the school yet in relation to that? I'm not sure if you all wanted to answer that one.
Well, yeah, I might jump in on that one. Thanks, Ali. Look, I think when the government made that announcement last week in relation to two things, the vaccinations and the rapid antigen testing, you know, I don't think there was a lot of depth or background to the announcement. So today, you know, nearly a week on from when the announcement was made, we still are none the wiser about how the vaccinations in a mass, the mass organisation that will take place. What we do know is that the government is planning to set up a mass vaccination hub at Kudos Bank Arena at Homebush, and the understanding that the schools have is that students will be bused there. Now, we're very much not in agreement with that, to put our students, 146 students. That means bringing back our boarders as well, our 20 boarders, which is really out of the question at this stage, to ship them into or bus them into Homebush to have vaccinations. And we know that some students will want that, families will want their son to be vaccinated, others of them won't. So, you know, I've asked the Education Minister personally this morning if there can be some allowances made to have vaccinations done on site, and we would do that in a COVID safe way. I'm not holding my breath about that, but certainly asking the question has planted a seed that we hope will go through. In relation to the rapid antigen testing, you know, I really don't know why the government made that announcement last week when it still hasn't been approved by the Therapeutic Goods Administration. There are none in the country currently, and they're talking about a whole range of protocols and procedures for that being done. Firstly, it was to be done at home. Now the comments are being done, it's to be done when they get to school, and you'll need a medical person to administer that. I think all these things are really red herrings that, you know, change the conversation away from what's important. And what is important is keeping our students and our staff and our families safe. And at the moment, the best way to do that, and Dr. Kerry Chance says that every day at the 11 o'clock press briefing, is to stay at home. And while we're staying at home, we're offering the best online learning that we can do. Once we know about vaccinations and all of those sorts of things, we will communicate it. Thanks, Ali.
Thanks, Lee. Dawn, I'm going to throw back to you in relation to a question here. That's to do with the recommending one video conferencing tool for all teachers to use rather than boys having to remember what mode that they're on, such as Teams.
Yeah, thanks, Ali. Look, that's a really good question. I suppose the college also reflects, you know, society as well. If you ask an organisation or a family or an individual what video conferencing they use when they're dealing with relationships, personal relationships or business relationships, they often say they're using Zoom because it's a universal platform around the world, or they use Microsoft Teams because an organisation uses that. It's just one of those situations that's developed over time at the college where different needs, different platforms we've used have utilised different video conferencing platforms. We could go to one platform, and that's something that we're considering over the next few weeks, once again, as we reevaluate our online program. But at the moment, there's two main ones we use, which are Teams and Zoom, and the boys, by and large, seem pretty confident with that. Any student who isn't has, certainly some help that they can ask with regards to emailing the IT department or myself. But it's just one of those developments that's occurred, similar to everywhere in society. There's a number of platforms to use. Look, I normally think that when you give the students an opportunity to use a number of platforms or applications or devices, it makes them more universally able to use digital platforms or devices. When they end up working in the real world, then they're comfortable in lots of different platforms. But that's just my perspective. But we certainly are considering moving to one platform, and whether we do or not, that's something the staff will decide and the leadership will decide. But it's a very good question, Ellie.
Thanks very much, Don. Judith or Rick, there's quite a few questions in relation to, the trials and misadventure and things like that. Is there anything after reading these questions you guys wanted to make mention?
Yeah, I might make mention of a few things. Look, the trials would be fantastic to have. However, in this current climate, it's just too risky to have students coming in, sitting with each other, and risking their health and also the health of their families. So if that does change, we will definitely give the kids practice at sitting for prolonged periods and answering questions. So that might be a possibility towards the end of the term or the start of next term, depending on how things go. But in this current climate, it's too risky to do that. In terms of illness misadventure, there's two different applications for that. The first type of illness misadventure is a group illness misadventure, something that a whole group or whole class would complete based on specific things that have hampered their progress. There's also individual misadventure, usually therefore the HSC exams themselves. Look, as with all other schools, we're exploring those avenues as we go. So as things progress and as we know more towards the end of this term, that's when we'll start to look at our illness misadventure. One other thing that I will mention while I've got the mic is that the HSC exams have been shifted back by 1 week, and on Friday, NESA released the students' timetables for exams again. So it would be a good idea for your son to get onto NESA Students Online and download their personalised timetable. I know a lot of the exams have changed their ordering, so it would be a good idea for them to get that ready so that they can start to see the realities of the HSC when they start to see their HSC timetable. Thanks, Ali. I hope I've answered those questions.
I think you have, Rick. I might hold you there on another two. So do the parents need to actually start to complete the misadventure forms, or is that done by the school?
Look, it's a combination of both. So one of the 3 sections will be students need to complete it. One of the sections will be the teacher and the other will be the school. But we'll cross that bridge later on down the track. So when we get to week 8 of this term, or even week 1 of next term, we'll look at those sorts of options then. Once we know exactly what sorts of misadventures that our students have had, at this point in time, it's not clear. We're sort of only halfway through that process. Towards the end of the term, we'll have a clearer picture of exactly what problems we've had along the way.
Thanks for clarifying that one. That's good, just so everyone's really clear. And also, what platforms will be used for the online assessment tasks?
Yeah, good question. We'll try and keep to the platforms that we've already been using. So Google Classroom is something that the students are familiar with. So in most cases, we'll go along those lines. There's probably different types of tasks that the students could get. There's a more research-based task and a more exam-based task. So they will use slightly different technology in how we maintain them. And we'll talk to the students about that as we progress. So rather than going through it all right now, different tasks will have different needs and different technologies. So students will cover that during their own individual courses rather than me trying to cover maths and English and science all in the one hit tonight.
All right, thanks very much, Rick. That's great. Was there anything else, Lee? Did you have anything else you wanted to add this evening? Kathy?
I don't think so, Ali. I think, just thank all my colleagues for the wonderful responses and input they've given tonight, and the questions have been fantastic, and hopefully we're responding to those well. But, please don't see this as the only opportunity. We're always on the end of the phone line. Send us an email. Get on the end of the phone. Please continue to communicate with us. We don't have all the answers sometimes. We're waiting on advice, but we'll do it in a timely manner for you in a really supportive way too. So thanks everyone.
I think one little thread that I'm just reading here in the Q&A is that Baldino, the parents are certainly feeling that we are valuing their pastoral care and making sure that the boys are feeling that they're loved and feeling that they're supported. So thanks for what you're doing. What's the line of support if anyone is needing of support?
Yeah, look, there's a number of avenues to seek support. Look, I'll give you one example. The survey I put out last week and getting feedback, any boy who answered in a particular way to that survey, I personally got in touch with them to see how they were travelling. And a lot of the time, some of these boys just answered the survey incorrectly, but just to check in with them and to say, are you all right? Why did you put a 10 out of 10 for your well-being, saying you're needing support? And they said, no, sir, I just made a mistake. I thought 10 was great and it was the other way around. But even just to check in and make sure that we are covering all bases is really, really important. So I guess the layers that are there for support is the homeroom teacher is number one. So everyone checks in with the homeroom teacher. The classroom teacher is the second point of call there when a boy maybe doesn't show up to class or is inconsistent in the classroom or is not completing work. And then from there, our middle leaders will get those notifications and follow through from there. The counsellors, boys are self-referring to the counsellor. So there's another option there if they want to bypass or they're a bit, they just want a bit more independence in the way they want to, who they want to speak to. And our 3 counsellors are available through a direct communication. So again, there's another layer of support. From another dimension, again, we don't want to overwhelm the boys by doing activities. So we get to pastoral care on a Friday and, we're asking all the boys to, do a little skit on their phone and submit it. That's all good and great. But we're also aware that they're online for quite a long period of time during the week, and we don't want to put more on their plate by doing activities. But at the same time, we've had activities like, bring your pet on a Friday with you online to homeroom, and boys are showing up with their dogs and animals and turtles and snakes and whatever. So all those things are happening, which are great, easy to do, connect, start conversations, and I know staff are engaging in that type of interaction as well. So all those things are happening behind the scenes, and I guess we are really lucky that we are communicating really well. We've got good relationships, staff, we've got great relationships with the boys, and if the boys themselves communicate immensely well with each other, and if anyone's in need of support from a wellbeing perspective, all it takes is an email to a staff member, to someone in the community, and full circle someone, we get support pretty quick. So I'm really, really proud of that.
All right, thank you, Baldino. And Kathy, I know that many of the boys have been appreciating the daily email that comes out from you, and I particularly loved when the senior leaders did the little, tips that they were passing on. So thanks for doing that, Kath, and I know the boys are appreciating it and the staff.
Thanks, Ali.
All right, parents. Well, we might call it an end there. It's 8:01. We've managed to keep it down to an hour. We've got obviously the Socceroos, the Matildas, sorry, playing tonight that we all want to get to and cheer along. Thanks to everyone, and thank you to you, parents. It's not an easy journey. You know, we've all got a lot going on. We're juggling a lot. And you know, I know I myself am, you know, I've got 4 kids under 10. It is full on, and so well done to everyone. Give ourselves a break sometimes. I think we need to remember to do that for ourselves, and you know, and have some fun with your son. We've got all this extra time at home. I hope everyone's pulling out board games and discovering, you know, lots of different things. So thank you so very much. Stay in communication with us if we need. If there's any questions that haven't been answered, please feel free to email them in, and good night, and thank you very much.